Hey everyone, and welcome back to MMA Alerts. The first story today is Islam Makhache confirms UFC reports after UFC 302. When UFC 302 was coming up, some fans and experts thought Islam Makhache might have a staph infection on his leg. During a press conference before the fight, when asked about it, the lightweight champion dodged the questions and said he'd be ready to fight as planned. After Makhache's impressive win over Dustin Poirier, the champion is said to have agreed that he was really fighting staph. The famous fighter allegedly told Russian media that the infection kept him from training for about a week, which was about 3 weeks before the fight. In the end, only Islam and his team know how much the infection affected his training and how well he did at UFC 302. It is true that almost all athletes have to deal with some kind of injury or pain during the fight. That means Poirier may have been less than 100% before the fight too. Dana White gets praise from Jon Jones after the interview. After UFC 302, Dana White called out anyone who thinks Islam Makhache is better than Jon Jones in a pound-for-pound matchup. Jones liked what the UFC boss said. Makhache was ranked #1 in the UFC's pound-for-pound rankings going into this weekend's fights, and Jones was named #2. Makhache got hit hard and cut badly in the fight on Saturday, but he was able to choke out one of the best lightweights of this age. Why would his rank change then? After the fight, White was asked to say who he thought was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. The CEO of the UFC then laughed off the idea that Makhache beat Jones. Hey, it's one of the best things ever. I believe he is wonderful. He's not the best fighter in the world pound for pound. It's crazy for someone to call Islam the best fighter in the world right now when Jon Jones is in the ring. That person should never be ranked in the pound for pound or in any other list. If you really believe that. Jon Jones has never lost a fight. He has fought every bad guy in the world. When you think about what pound for pound numbers really mean, he took it to heavyweight and beat the best boxer in the world. Jones must have been watching, or he quickly heard what White said, because he replied with the following post on X. Receiving that amount of praise from the boss who has been here since the very first UFC felt great. I know people who don't like him will not like what he says, but Dana is hard to fight with. Dana White has seen my whole journey from the very beginning. The facts are the facts. Jones also didn't agree with Makhache's claim that he is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. You get into a real battle and then submit at the last second. That's what makes you the best. To be more accurate, we should probably say that White hasn't been with the UFC since the first one. The Fertitas, who are friends of White's, didn't buy the UFC until 2001. White also says that Cyril Gane was the best heavyweight in the world when Jones beat him. Is that hard to argue with? Sorry, no. It's not, though. I believe that was Francis Ngannou. He quit the UFC after beating Gane. Putting that aside, Makhache was asked to react to what White said, and this is what the champion said: it's fine now. What do you think? Is Islam the best fighter right now in terms of strength? The game, or is it bones? Sean Strickland responds to the shocking scoreboard. After the fight between Paulo Costa and Sean Strickland on Saturday, it didn't look like there was any real question that Strickland would win. Well, that was until it was revealed that one of the judges had given Costa the win. People quickly and reasonably went crazy online after that score, but Strickland says he's to blame for being there in the first place. That 2 judges gave the fight 5-0, 4-5, and 4-5, and 4-9, 4-6 to Strickland, with the 3rd judge giving it 4-9, 4-6 to Costa. After the fight, Aaron Bronstetter of Sportsnet asked Strickland to speak on the situation. The former welterweight champion said, man, those judges are crazy. The judges are crazy. Also, I'm a little too open about what I believe. I also think that this bias can work against you sometimes. But you know what? If you let the judges decide and you lose, you just shut up and take it. You're a man in the cage, in the ring. You know that. You need to do it. You are responsible if you let the judges decide and you lose. Sure, we've seen a lot of fighters get sucked in by the judges, but does that mean the fighters are to blame if they don't finish their opponent? That's a good question. Of course, we shouldn't have to have this discussion in the first place, right? Aside from that, is it important to note that Strickland has won 4 of his last 5 fights by decision? 2 of them came down to a tie vote. Since 2020, the outspoken boxer has only won 2 fights. And since it's still hard to tell who is guilty or innocent, you could say that Strickland is playing with fire. After losing UFC 302, Dustin Poirier is called out. After Dustin Poirier's memorable and brave loss to Islam Makhache, the Diamond said that we might not see him again in the cage. But it didn't take long for another star, Alexander Volkanovski, to politely call Poirier out. Yes, the famous boxer and former featherweight champion asked Poirier if he'd like to dance soon after UFC 302 ended. Just maybe, it depends on what I'm doing and when. It's clear that I want to fight later this year. It's not clear to me what's going on. Also, I don't want to wait too long. So if the time is right, Dustin and I might be able to hit it out. I know that he kind of just wants fun fights. Of course, we respect each other a lot, and I believe that would be a very bad fight. That sounds like something I'd be willing to do while I wait for that featherweight belt. A lightweight fight with someone like Dustin Poirier might be fun. That's why you heard it first here. We might be able to make something happen. Dustin, you're a star. Don't lower your head. Even so, that was a great show. We might be able to have some fun in there, dance around a bit. Tell me what you think. That sounds good, right? That's a fight that on paper a lot of people would love to see. We are, after all, talking about two fighters from this age who have a lot of fans. But would Poirier come back if they fought? It's not clear. It would be great for Poirier to get a win over Volkanovski. It would also likely bring in a good amount of money for him. What about fights with a little more heat, like a scrap with Nate Diaz? Is that what the Diamond wants? Let's see how Dana White reacts when one of Khabib's teammates gets kicked out. Islam Makhache made a big splash in the world of mixed martial arts by choking out Dustin Poirier. The champions team praised their friend as soon as the octagon door opened out. Instead, some of them jumped over and into the cage, which may have made some people think about what happened with Team Khabib at UFC 229. Not sure what the cage leave had to do with settling scores in a fight afterward, but Usman Nurmagomedov, Khabib's cousin, was kicked out of the building because of it. Dana White was asked if it was true that Usman had been let out by the Secret Service during the press conference after the fight. Yes, charging the cage is a quick way to be led or pushed to the nearest exit, especially if you're in the stands and not even in the fighter's corner. News about UFC fights. UFC matchmakers are still working on making the summer plan for the promotion. In fact, fights have been scheduled for cards that are happening right around the corner. In this case, Marcel Dorf recently said that on June 15th, rising welterweight Akram Aliskerov will fight former Dana White Contender Series fighter Antonio Tricoli. It was planned for Aliskerov to fight Andre Muniz at the Vegas card, but Muniz had to pull out because he hurt his foot. When Aliskerov joined the UFC, there was a lot of excitement. The skilled sambo fighter has since knocked out Phil Halls and most recently Warley Alves. Hamza Shamaev is the only person who has ever beaten Aliskerov. That's not a bad thing. Tricoli, on the other hand, hasn't fought since November 2021 when he won by knockout outside of the UFC. Aliskerov had won 7 straight fights before he lost at UFC Vegas 93. If he does, it will be a great start to his UFC career. Dana White says something about the Nick Diaz fight. People looked at each other funny when they heard that Nick Diaz is going to fight Vicente Luque on August 3rd. One big reason is that Diaz hasn't fought since 2021. This meant that many people didn't know about the Stockton Stars fight this summer, let alone Diaz's fight in Abu Dhabi against Luque. There was some question about how the fight came about after UFC 302. Dana White said it was because Diaz had been begging him to fight. White was also asked to say something about Kevin Holland's latest claim that he was asked to fight Diaz. But Holland agreed to fight Michael Olashechuk at UFC 302 because he wanted to fight as soon as possible. White didn't know if Holland was telling the truth, but he agreed that if Holland said it, then it's true. If Diaz beats Luque, could he fight Holland in the future? You can do anything. But first things first, Diaz, who is now 40 years old, wants to win for the first time since 2011. After giving Dustin Poirier 2 rounds before Islam Makhachev made him tap out, Khabib tells a UFC judge to be careful. This is what Khabib said. The UFC canceled the press meeting that was supposed to happen today, which puts the fight between Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler at risk. The public doesn't yet know why the fight was canceled, but fans think that the whole thing won't happen after all. What some fans said. Did Conor drop out because of problems with drugs and alcohol? Conor wasn't able to make it because he was still out having fun from the night before. The press meeting between McGregor and Chandler has been pushed back and will not happen today. There must be a threat to the fight. While I won't guess, I will say that this press conference took a lot of work to plan and put together, so the choice to move it is a big deal. Here are 6 reasons why the UFC 303 Dublin press conference was moved. Irish President Conor is running for office. The power slap is now going to happen. Chandler will be Trump's running mate. Sweet drugs. The Saudis like the idea of MMA. Dana had to book a show last minute. There is no certainty of a presser. What kind of fight is this? It's true that McGregor is trying to avoid the fight and keep putting it off, but you can't tell his fans that. It's pretty clear that there will be no fight until McGregor steps into the ring. When asked about the delay, Conor McGregor finally spoke up. This is what he said.